Good evening, and thank you for taking part in this live teletown hall meeting with Congressman Scott Tipton. Over the course of this call, Congressman Tipton will provide an update on some of the issues he's working on in Washington, as well as take your questions on any policy issues that are on your mind. If you would like to ask Congressman Tipton a question or make a comment at any time during this call, please press the 0 key on your phone keypad. If you would like to receive periodic email updates from Congressman Tipton on the work he is doing for the 3rd Congressional District, please press 7. Or you can also sign up by visiting the website at www.tipton.house.gov. Again, this is a live teletown hall meeting with Congressman Scott Tipton. And if you would like to ask a question at any time, please press the 0 key on your phone keypad. With that, to get started, we will begin with some remarks from Congressman Tipton.
Well, thank you, everyone, for taking time to be able to join us this evening for our telephone town hall, and do look forward to your questions. But before we do get started, would like to be able to point out something I think that's impacted the vast majority of people in our district as a positive. We passed through the House of Representatives, went through the Senate, and had a presidential signature to be able to achieve the Tax Cut and Jobs Act, and it is now officially the law of the land. And individuals and families across our state, across our district, are now starting to see more of their resources that they have earned end up in their paychecks at the end of the week. We've heard a lot of positive comments coming out of our district from businesses and individuals in terms of being able to keep more of those resources. Simply, it's creating the opportunity for people to be able to save a little more money for college, maybe get caught up on some bills, strengthen a rainy day fund, or maybe even to be able to take a vacation. And in our district, $50, $100 coming back into a paycheck every week is not crumbs. It's an actual positive impact for our families, as we've seen a tale of two economies in Colorado, to where the metropolitan areas and a few of our resort areas have done well. We've continued to see a lot of our families struggling to be able to cover the bills. I think this is a very positive step that Congress took to be able to empower the American people. And just one other topic that I'd like to be able to speak to directly is something that's challenged not only in the 3rd Congressional District, but for our state and for our nation. And that's the opioid and heroin crisis. It's become an epidemic that's sweeping across the nation, and unfortunately our communities have not been immune. This past year, I had the chance to host over 15 to 20 of the roundtables for our opioid addiction and heroin abuse, to be able to seek solutions through our local communities and to be able to have that conversation. We've had some great feedback and some good opportunities, I think, to be able to move forward in terms of addressing a challenge which knows no socioeconomic or geographical boundaries, but impacts many in the communities that we all live and work in. Obviously not an issue that just the federal government can solve. It does have a role to play, but it's got to be a partnership with our state, with our communities, and amongst our families as well. I just recently co-sponsored the Alternatives to Opioids and Emergency Department Act, otherwise known as ALTO. This legislation does offer a unique solution to the opioid crisis by aiming to reduce the use of opioids in hospital emergency departments across the nation. Too often, opioid abuse does stem from prescription pain medication, and because Colorado has the 12th highest rate of abuse of prescription opioids in the country, this legislation will go a long way to be able to help contribute to the crisis in our state. But I do again appreciate all of you taking time out of your schedule to be able to be on the call here this evening, and look forward to your questions.
And for those of you who are just joining the call, this is a live teletown hall meeting with Congressman Scott Tipton. And over the course of the call, Congressman Tipton will give an update on some of the issues he is working on in Washington, as well as take your questions on any policy issues that are on your mind. If you would like to ask Congressman Tipton a question or make a comment at any time, please press the 0 key on your phone keypad. If you would like to receive periodic email updates from Congressman Tipton on the work he is doing for the district, please press 7. Or you can also sign up by visiting the website at www.tipton.house.gov. Also, we want to give you an important phone number here. If you're currently experiencing an issue in dealing with a federal agency, including the IRS, VA, Medicare, Social Security, immigration, please call our Pueblo office at 719-542-1073, and we may be able to assist you on that. Again, that phone number is 719-542-1073. And again, if you would like to ask a question at any time, please press 0 on your phone keypad. For our first question here, we're going to go to, let's see, I'm coming in the screen here. We're going to go to Ashley in Pueblo.
Hi, Ashley.
Hello. Thank you for taking my question.
You bet. I appreciate you being on the call.
Yeah, of course. My question for you is your plans to keep Pueblo schools safe.
You know, that's an important issue. I think as a nation, as moms and dads, grandparents, we're all shaken by the tragedy that we saw take place down in Florida. And something that we're going to have to be working together and seeking all the solutions that we possibly can to be able to address the school violence that we've seen and making sure that our kids are actually going to be kept safe. We did pass this week the Stop School Violence Act, which I think is going to be a step in the right direction to be able to make sure that we're addressing some of the real challenges. What this legislation is going to be doing is actually providing some resources back to our state to be able to actually have counseling and to be able to fix some of the problems that we've seen in terms of actually addressing the real challenge of not only mental health issues but frustration, bullying, and to be able to address that in a broader band area. But this is also something that really as a community we are going to have to make sure that we are talking about and having a real discussion on in terms of why we are where we're at, literally as a country, to where be it students or others looking to this type of violence to be able to deal with issues that they are facing. It's completely unacceptable, and we're going to be continuing to have that. In Colorado, we do have a program, just met with the statewide PTA, and it's the Safe to Tell program. Often students are the first to know, as we have now discovered down in Florida from the news reports that are coming out. This is a call-in line to where people can do it in terms of being able to protect their individual identity, to be able to create that real awareness, and to be able to make sure that we have people that are going to be responding and following up from a law enforcement level, but also in terms of a support and a counselor's level as well. This bill passed this week will be replicated nationwide in the U.S., and I think it is going to be one of the positive steps. It's not going to be the perfect solution, but it is something that I believe is going to be a step in the right direction to deal with something that I think horrifies all of us and something that we do need to be addressing.
For those of you who are just joining the phone call, this is a live teletown hall meeting with Congressman Scott Tipton. And over the course of the call, Congressman Tipton will provide an update on some of the issues he is working on in Washington, as well as take your questions on any issues that may be on your mind. If you'd like to ask Congressman Tipton a question or make a comment at any time, please press the 0 key on your phone keypad. And if you'd like to receive periodic email updates from Congressman Tipton on the work he is doing on behalf of the 3rd Congressional District, please press 7. Or you can also sign up by visiting the website at www.tipton.house.gov. For our next question, we are going to go to Brian in Levita.
Hi, Brian.
Hi, good evening, sir. I'm Senior Vice Commander of the American Legion down in this area, and I constantly get asked about proper medical treatment for the veterans. I travel over 100 miles to get to Denver to get proper care, but there's no care down in my area whatsoever. And I was wondering what you thought about that, and if there's a way to try to get it corrected. I think the major problem is that they can't get physicians in this area. Your comments, sir?
Well, thanks, Brian. And you do point to a problem that we've worked a lot on in terms of veterans, making sure that the promises that were made can be fulfilled to them. In fact, I'd introduced legislation, and Senator Gardner has introduced a companion bill on the Senate side for the Veterans Improved Access and Care Act of 2017 to be able to get that medical care for our veterans and to make sure that we're getting it accessible to them. The VA plays an incredibly important role, and so many of our VAs do a terrific job, but oftentimes with, say, it be a cold, maybe a broken bone, something, these are issues that can be handled locally. And the goal under the CHOICE Act, some of the legislation that I and Senator Gardner have introduced into Congress, is to be able to have veterans be able to actually get that care within their hometowns and to be able to provide that access. The CHOICE Act, we've made some good improvements on it. It's not completely perfect yet, but something that we're going to continue to work on. When this had originally passed, the chairman of the committee wanted us to be able to emphasize that this was not the final end solution, but the first step in making sure that we're fulfilling that promise. As you probably experienced, Brian, the drive, be it to Pueblo or up to Denver, or in the case of our veterans down in southwest Colorado having to drive to Albuquerque, that 4.5-hour drive just one way is significant. We are working to make sure that the reimbursements that are going to be eligible for the CHOICE Act is for the providers is going to be able to actually help bring a few more providers back into the area. In our rural communities right now, be it for the veterans or for the general population as well, we have a real void of physicians to be able to care for the broader community. Our doctors that are there do a remarkable job given the number of people that they're trying to be able to cover. But the one issue that we had really heard in regards to our veterans and people signing up for the CHOICE Act from the medical community was they did need to be paid on time. That was the fault of the system, not getting those reimbursements back to them on time. We're moving to be able to correct that so that we can get more physicians signed up and to be able to get that access and care delivered to you. And thank you for your service, by the way, Brian, and appreciate all of your hard work in the American Legion.
Well, thank you, sir. We have talked before, and I really appreciate you keeping us in mind down here in La Veta, and I hope that we can see progression like you talked about as soon as possible.
Well, and again, I appreciate that. We've had several other bills that we have co-sponsored as well because as Vietnam veterans are aging, we're starting to see different medical problems that are coming up. We've got some records issues, but we're also getting some late-term illnesses that could have been a result of simply that service. And so we are introducing and have co-sponsored legislation to make sure that we're fulfilling that promise to people that have put their lives on the line to be able to protect liberty in this country. So thanks a lot, Brian, for being on the call, and we'll continue to work on it and continue to stay in touch with our office.
And thank you, everybody, for joining us this evening. If you're just getting on the call, this is a live teletown hall meeting with Congressman Scott Tipton. Over the course of the call, Congressman Tipton is happy to take your questions on any policy issues that are on your mind. If you'd like to ask Congressman Tipton a question or make a comment at any time, please press the 0 key on your phone keypad. And if you'd like to receive periodic email updates from Congressman Tipton on the work he is doing for the district, please press 7. Or you can also sign up by visiting the website at www.tipton.house.gov. And then I want to give you a quick phone number here. If you are currently experiencing an issue in dealing with a federal agency, including the IRS, VA, immigration, Medicare, or Social Security, please give our Pueblo office a call at 719-542-1073, and we may be able to assist you with that issue. Again, that number is 719-542-1073. With that, we're going to go to our next question, and that is going to be Zach in Pueblo.
Hi, Zach. Thanks for being with us.
Hey, how you doing this evening?
Good. Thanks so much. Hope you're doing well.
Good. Well, I hear a lot of this conversation about asking questions if the government agencies have treaded upon the people, such as the IRS, the VA, so on and so forth. Well, as we start to produce in this state again and we create a product, those government agencies are going to want to come back to get their cut of the pie, whichever policy or rules they regulate and so on and so forth. My question is what are we going to do to keep a safe environment for our businesses and our state environment's health in check while still allowing these producers to do what they do produce? So we can afford such things as the VA and so on and so forth.
Now, are you talking in terms of resource development, Zach, or?
Well, that. I mean, we've had some major wildfires that seem to get out of control, and it's partly to blame on, not harvesting those resources, but it's also a part of, political environmentalism that, it allows things to get out of context. I mean, I understand the EPA has a job to do, but when we have a good company here in Colorado and they leave to Kansas, what difference is it going to make? We've got to accommodate business and production here, but at the same time keeping the people safe. My question really bears down on government overreach. The EPA does so many things that they're not even allowed to do. I mean, look at what they did up there with the breaching the mine shaft and ruining miles of river. Nobody's been held accountable for that. But if I light a firework and light my neighbor's house on fire, I'm going to prison. Those are the things I'm worried about is as we go into production in this state as a whole, what rules are we going to create to allow that production to stay here, not just come here, get going, and then go to Texas or some other state that's more accommodating.
Yeah.
A good example, Magpul. Magpul left the state over some silly state legislation. I mean, we lost good jobs and good families to being senseless.
I think you point to an important point that we need, no one disputes that we do need to be able to have regulations, we do need to be able to have accountability, and it does need to be sensible. One area that we are continuing to work on out of our office is having sensible regulations, but also to employ something that happens in the private sector on a regular basis, a review process, to be able to look at once a rule, once a regulation is put into place, is it achieving the goal? Does it need to be enhanced? Can it be lessened? Does it need to be adjusted? Because it doesn't have to be an adversarial relationship between government and business. It's in both parties' interest to make sure that we have good, sensible regulations for the public safety and to also make sure that we've got regulations for accountability, but also that businesses are going to be able to prosper and to be able to grow jobs in our communities as well. Can give you a little bit of feedback on the EPA that when you had cited the Gold King mine spill effectively down in southwest Colorado, we have now seen the EPA finally step up and have real accountability in terms of trying to be able to make impacted individuals that were along the waterway, some of our Native American tribes and local communities whole in terms of some of the costs that they have had. So I think that is a positive move in the right direction, and we're continuing to make sure and to fight for actually having just good, sensible regulations and a good review process to be able to try and address that.
Well, I guess that concludes my questions.
Well, I appreciate you being on, Zach.
All right.
For those of you just joining us this evening, this is live Teletown Hall meeting, and over the course of the call, Congressman Tipton will provide an update on some of the issues being worked on in Washington, as well as take your questions on any policy issues that are on your mind. If you would like to ask Congressman Tipton a question or make a comment at any time, please press the 0 key on your phone keypad. And if you'd like to receive periodic email updates from Congressman Tipton on the work he is doing for the district, please press 7. Or you can also sign up by visiting the website at www.tipton.house.gov. And then if you are currently experiencing an issue in dealing with federal agency, including the IRS, VA, Immigration, Medicare, or Social Security, please give our Pueblo office a call at 719-542-1073, and somebody there will be able to speak with you. We may be able to assist you with your issue. Again, that number is 719-542-1073. With that, we're going to go to Deanna in Center.
Hi, Deanna.
Hi, Congressman Tipton. This is Deanna from Center, Colorado. I just had a question. What do you see with the opioid addiction issue in America? I know that that's becoming a larger conversation across the country. I didn't know if there's any legislation coming forth, if there's any talk of legislation. What do you have according to that?
Yeah, I again appreciate you bringing that up, Deanna. This is something that has impacted all of our communities. We'd had the opportunity to be able to sit down with the Drug Enforcement Agency in terms of some of the hot spots in Colorado. Unfortunately, a couple of them happen to be in our district. And I think when we're dealing with the opioid and ultimately heroin addiction that is happening, it is a complex issue. We've had people that have become addicted to opioids through no volition of their own. They may have had an injury, there may have been a surgery that they had to go through, and given their physiology, had unwittingly become addicted to opioids. As we've had legislation to be able to prevent what they call doc shopping, to where you move from doctor to doctor to try and be able to get the prescriptions, we've unfortunately then had people turn to heroin. The most recent legislation, which we've just passed, was just the other day. It's called the ALTO legislation, and it's Alternatives to Opioid Treatment. We actually have a program in the state of Colorado to where they'd had a pilot project. They saw a 36% reduction in opioid abuse in the 10 hospitals where that was taken. We've also got to be able to, and what this legislation will do, we'll be able to expand that to all of our hospitals. They can apply for grants to be able to look at some of the alternatives to be able to treat that. And some of it is with nerve blocks, topical solutions, rather than oral opioids, to be able to have some intravenous. It's a variety of different treatments to be able to actually try and treat it in a different way, and they've had some real success. The appropriations, in terms of the appropriations end of the world, which we're going through right now as well, we have asked for more support to be able to stop fentanyl from crossing into the U.S. across the Mexican border as well. That has ultimately become one of the unfortunate byproducts that we've seen out of the opioid addiction challenge that is impacting communities in our hometowns, people that we know. And again, it knows no socio or economic boundaries. It can impact any potential family. We've got a variety of pieces of legislation to try and be able to help address this. Health and Human Services had awarded to Colorado, went to the governor's office for the state to be able to distribute $7.5 million to be able to start working with our local communities for some of the treatment. But this will not be an issue that will be handled strictly by the federal government. This is going to have to be a collaborative effort with not only the federal government support, but being able to develop those homegrown solutions to be able to address the challenge that is faced. And that incorporates the state, our local communities, and then our families as well. Those are the stories that we have heard are going to be most effective as we've held roundtables around the 3rd Congressional District dealing with the opioid crisis. Just had one recently in Grand Junction, met not only with the medical community, but a separate opioid roundtable with the VA as well in terms of how they are starting to address it. So one big issue is creating the awareness. and it is going to be long-term in terms of actually trying to be able to have treatment. It's not something that you sign up for a day and you're going to be over it. There will be some long-term treatment issues that we're going to have to deal with, making sure that we're doing what we can to make sure that the abuses are not happening, awareness in the medical community as well as within our families as well. And then the first thing is, and that's going to be part of the ALTO bill as well, to try and make sure that we aren't creating the problem to begin with. So I appreciate, Deanna, your concern on this. This is impacting a lot of our families, and it is a nationwide crisis that we are facing.
Thank you for your...
Thank you.
And thank you all for joining us this evening. This is a live Teletown Hall meeting with Congressman Scott Tipton. And if you would like to ask Congressman Tipton a question or make a comment at any time, please press the 0 key on your phone keypad. If you would like to receive periodic email updates from Congressman Tipton on the work he is doing on behalf of the 3rd Congressional District in Washington, please press 7. Or you can also sign up by visiting the website at www.tipton.house.gov. And for those of you just joining us, we do want to pass along a phone number to you if you are currently experiencing an issue in dealing with the federal agency, including IRS, VA, immigration, Medicare, Social Security issues. Please call our Pueblo office at 719-542-1073, and we may be able to assist you with that. Again, that number is 719-542-1073. And again, if you would like to ask a question at any time, please press 0. For our next question, we're going to go to Mike in Mancos.
Hi, Mike.
Good evening, Scott.
How are you?
Well, so far so good. Hope you're doing very well.
Doing well, thank you.
Excellent. My big question is with Veterans Choice Program.
With the Veterans Choice Program? Okay.
Yes. Of course, living in Mancos, I'm right on the border of anything which I would be assigned to a different health program. However, I signed up for the program in Grand Junction, which puts me right on the border. What I'm wondering is, has anything in the works for reforming the Veterans Choice Program?
Well, we'll continue to see changes in the Veterans Choice Program. I think, Mike, what you really point to is a challenge we've heard from our veterans, particularly those that don't live in a community where there is a VA. Part of it is the driving. I know out of Mancos, out of Durango, out of Cortez, it's a 4.5-hour drive down to Albuquerque one way, 4.5-hour drive back, 9 hours of drive time when you don't feel well. I've talked to veterans out of Pueblo that have had an appointment to drive to Denver. They get up and then they find that an appointment's been canceled. The idea of the Choice Act was for areas that aren't a real specialty for the VA, but just general medical issues, to be able to try and get in with a local doctor. And as we're visiting with Brian out of La Vita just a little earlier, part of the challenge that we've seen is to actually make sure that veterans are going to be able to get the care and within the medical community. One of the issues that we'd had raised was in Alamosa. Had an opportunity to be able to visit with veterans there, and also with the clinic. Some of the docs had indicated that the pay was slow in terms of being reimbursed, and they do have costs. So we are addressing that end of it as well to be able to try and make sure that we're probably getting into real care for our veterans when they actually need it, and also taking advantage of telehealth. We saw a great example of that over in Alamosa, and that can be expanded out and is being expanded out throughout the country, throughout our district. for veterans to be able to receive that care. But the distances that you're talking about, I think, are obviously a real burden to be able to get to a VA. With the Choice Act where you've signed up, hopefully we can get a doctor in Durango, Cortez, a clinic in Mancos to be able to actually see the veteran, to be able to see you, to be able to take care of maybe some issues. Feel free to call our office if we can help you, and do want to hear about whatever challenges you may have with the Choice Act. This is something that we knew would be a work in progress to be able to get it structurally into place, but I think we are making some positive steps forward.
And we want to thank you all for joining us this evening for this live teletown hall meeting with Congressman Scott Tipton. Congressman Tipton will provide an update on some of the issues he's working on in Washington, as well as take your questions on any policy issues that are on your mind. We do have a number of questions in the queue currently, and we're working through those, but please feel free to press the 0 key at any time if you wish to ask a question, and we'll do our best to get through as many as possible before the call time is over. Again, press 0 at any time to ask a question. And if you would like to receive periodic email updates from Congressman Tipton on the work he is doing for the district, please press 7. Or you can also sign up by visiting the website at www.tipton.house.gov. For our next question, we're going to go to Gail in Pueblo.
Hi, Gail.
Hello.
Hi, Gail. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me. Governor, I was wondering, when is the Circle program going to be reopened at the state hospital? And it's a dual diagnosis program for drug and alcohol rehab, as well as mental health rehab. And it has been closed now since July. It is a 20-bed rehab unit, and when is it going to be open and expanded?
We hope that will be soon. This was a state issue that was dealing with the Circle program. We heard a lot of positive reports that you're well aware of in terms of it being able to deal with mental health issues, and if the state can't find a suitable agency to be able to run it, they're saying that they may move it elsewhere. We need to be doing all we can, and we'll certainly lend our voice to make sure that we are keeping it in Pueblo and the Pueblo region to be able to deliver some real service that is important to the community and important really for the state of Colorado as well. We've had a lot of good people that with great credentials that are providing that mental health for the agency to be able to do it. And it's been, as you probably note, highly successful in Pueblo in being able to treat a lot of the addiction that has driven mental health issues. And we've had a lot of testimonials that we've heard from a number of patients and their families as well for keeping those program participants involved because of the alternative is obviously not a good outcome without that treatment to go in. So it's something that we'll certainly be supportive of and do our best to be able to work with the state in making sure that not only does the program continue, but to be able to keep it in Pueblo, the Pueblo area as well.
And thank you, everybody, for joining us this evening for this live teletown hall meeting. Again, we are working through a number of questions that are currently queued up, but Congressman Tipton would be happy to take as many questions as possible before the time is up. So if you have a question, please press 0 on your phone keypad at any time. And for those of you that are currently waiting to ask a question, please stay on the line. We are still working through those, and we're going to get to as many as possible here. If you'd like to receive email updates from Congressman Tipton, please press 7, and somebody will be able to collect your information and get you signed up for those. Or you can also sign up by visiting the website at www.tipton.house.gov. And for those of you who just got on the call, we want to give you a phone number as well. If you are currently experiencing any issue dealing with a federal agency, including issues with IRS, VA, immigration, Medicare, or Social Security, please call our Pueblo office at 719-542-1073, and we may be able to assist you with that issue. Again, that's 719-542-1073. For our next question, we're going to go to Chris in Cortez.
Hi, Chris. Hi. How you doing, Scott? Hey, I have a question about, I think, your approach to trying to move some government out west. I know you're kind of championing, I think, getting the BLM to Grand Junction. I think it's a great idea. And I'm wondering kind of where that stands and how soon something might be done about that.
Well, I appreciate that. I've introduced legislation, and Senator Gardner has a companion piece of legislation on the Senate side. As a matter of fact, Chris, this is pretty timely. We just had Secretary Zinke before our Committee on Natural Resources today and brought this topic up. The importance of being able to have the BLM near the land that is their job to help administer. And what our legislation will do will require them to be able to have the study, to be able to look at the viability, the costs associated with being able to move the BLM out west. Secretary Zinke today seemed to be expressing that he was favorable to considering that, and they will be examining it, apparently even without the legislation, but we'll continue to push that as well because we think it is that important. Our public lands play an incredible role in all of our lives, for hunting, for fishing, for recreation of all types, to be able to play. And it's important, as you've probably noted, as I have, growing up on the west slope of Colorado and dealing with issues on our public lands. A lot of our BLM and Forest Service, which is run by the Department of Agriculture as well, they understand the issues on the ground. But too often we've seen when the mandates come out of Washington, D.C., we start to see some impacts which create a real challenge in some of our local communities. So we are optimistic that this is under serious consideration to be able to move it west, and we're certainly going to be strongly advocating to be able to get it in our state.
And thank you all for joining us this evening. For those of you waiting to ask a question, please stay on the line, and we will get to them as quickly as possible. And for those of you who wish to ask a question at any time and have not yet gotten into queue, please press 0 on your phone keypad at any time. And if you would like to receive periodic email updates from Congressman Tipton on the work he's doing for the district, please press 7, and somebody will get your information and get you signed up. Or you can also sign up yourself by visiting the website at www.tipton.house.gov. For our next question, we're going to go back to Pueblo West for John.
Hi, John.
Hello, Scott, and thank you for taking my question.
Yes, sir.
Hey, I would like to know what you're going to do to make our schools safer with all the mass shootings we've had, like in Florida, in Las Vegas. I'd also like to know how much money you have taken from the NRA and what your NRA rating is.
Well, I can start with the last. I have an A rating with the NRA, and off the top of my head, I can't give you a dollar amount that the NRA may have contributed to us. But I think the important part of your question is, what are we going to be doing about school safety and also about public safety as well? We started with Ashley during our call here this evening, asking essentially on the same topic. This is something I think that impacted you, John, and every one of us. We're just horrified by what had happened down in Florida. We saw a complete failure, unfortunately, of all the warning signs that the FBI could have picked up on to be able to address the issue. Obviously, failure by the school safety person that was in place who did not act as appropriately could have. And so there are a lot of issues that we do need to actually be able to address. And I think that as a community we're going to have to be coming together to talk about how the senseless violence is continuing to happen, and how to make sure that as not only from the federal government end of the world, but at our state, our local, and our family levels as well, and incorporating the students into it to make sure that we're doing what we can to be able to create safety in our schools. Colorado, we just had a visit with Colorado PTA that came in, and they described in Colorado, as you may well be aware, a program called Safe to Tell that allows students and parents to be able to make anonymous tips about planned acts of violence at schools. They reported to us it has been a successful program. A number of potential problems have been avoided simply by that program. We just passed out of the House of Representatives the Stop School Violence Act. This is legislation that will go a long way to help stop some of the violence like we saw down in Florida. It's going to be creating a new federal funding program that's going to be implementing programs across the nation to be able to help students and adults know how to not only be able to stop, but also to be able to spot, but also be able to report warning signs of gun violence before a tragedy occurs. And this is something I think that troubles all of us. We're troubled when we hear on the reports that came out 2 days ago about random packages which explode being left on steps in Austin, Texas. And also, as we saw in New York City when a vehicle was used. And that brings us to, I think, one of the important points societally. We do need to be having that conversation. What has changed? Why is this happening? It's mental health issues. Is it how we're dealing with social media? We don't know the answers because maybe the questions haven't been fully asked, but I think it is appropriate for us to listen and to talk to each other to be able to seek those solutions that we all want to have. And probably first on the top of the list is being able to send our children to school safely.
And we want to thank everybody for joining us this evening. Again, if you would like to ask Congressman Tipton a question at any time, please press the 0 key on your phone keypad. For those of you still waiting to ask a question, please stay on the line. We are working through them as quickly as possible before the end of the call here. And then if you would like to receive periodic email updates from Congressman Tipton on the work he is doing for the 3rd Congressional District, please press 7, and somebody will be able to collect your information and get you signed up for those. Or you can also sign up by visiting the website at www.tipton.house.gov. We also want to give you a phone number tonight if you haven't already taken it down. If you are currently experiencing an issue in dealing with a federal agency, including issues with the IRS, the VA, immigration, Medicare, or Social Security issues, please give our Pueblo office a call at 719-542-1073. And we may be able to assist you with that issue. Again, that number is 719-542-1073. For our next question, we're going to go to Rudy in Sanford.
Hi, Rudy.
Hi, how's it going?
I'm doing well, thank you. Hope you're doing good.
Okay, I have a couple of questions for you. And it's actually, I have some property in Costilla County that I had inherited, and the sheriff's station says they don't got jurisdiction over there because about a year and a half ago when I inherited the house from my father, some people just moved in, and there's like a law, a squatter's law that protects them, and I couldn't remove them off my own property. And then the sheriff's station said they didn't have jurisdiction out there, so there wasn't much they could do to help me out. Not only that, in the same county, because it's on a county road, it's in the county, they said that the graders won't go out there neither because their GPS says they're in Trinidad. And where the property's at is actually on the north side of the county. And the other thing is there's like a lot of squatters moving in there and taking over people's properties. heard from some friends of mine that on the western side of Costilla County that some people pulled guns on an old man and made him leave his own property, and the sheriffs don't want to do nothing about it.
Well, that's your property's on the north side of Castilla, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And the sheriff actually, I called the sheriff because some people had robbed my sister because she has a house down the street from where I got a house over there, and I have some tenants living in there now because in the house I own over there because some people just cut the locks, and I had proof that they cut the locks, moved in, and they stole the solar system, the wood heater, and all the stuff that I had in the house, and the sheriff didn't want to do nothing about it because my dad had died, and right after he died is when they cut the locks and moved in there. And they said that a verbal contract is as good as a written one, but my dad was deceased, so there was no proof or nothing. And they said they couldn't do nothing about it, that I had to do it through the courts instead of them, doing anything about it. All they told me is they didn't have jurisdiction.
I'll tell you what, Rudy, I think, do you happen to have a pen with you?
Have what? Yeah, I got a pen with me.
Yeah, this is something that's probably not a federal issue, but it's something that we can certainly help look into.
Okay.
And if you would call our office in Alamosa, and let me give you the number. It's 719 587 5105, and I will check with Josh to see if we have your number up on our screen in the event you lose this so that we can call back to you, but we'd be happy to inquire. I'd be curious to know why the sheriff wouldn't feel that they would not have jurisdiction anywhere in Castilla County if they're the sheriff of the county.
Oh.
And we can certainly help in terms of at least inquiring on it. On the balance of the contracts and that is kind of a legal issue that you might want to visit with some people locally, judges or an attorney about on it. But we can certainly reach out to the local police department to inquire as to why they feel they don't have jurisdiction and find out what the answer is for you.
Okay.
All right. Thanks,
All right.
Rudy.
And thank you, everybody, for joining us this evening for this live teletown hall meeting. We're going to continue working our way through some of the questions that are in the queue. And for those of you who would like to receive periodic email updates from Congressman Tipton on issues going on here in D.C. and the work he is doing on behalf of the 3rd Congressional District, again, please press 7, and somebody will be able to help you get signed up for those emails. And again, another number for you if you are having an issue with a federal agency, including IRS, VA, immigration, Medicare, or Social Security issues, please call our Pueblo office at 719-542-1073, and we may be able to assist you with that. For our next question, we're going to go to John in Delta.
Hi, John.
Hello.
John, thanks for taking
time.
Yes.
Well, thank you for taking time. I really appreciate this.
Yes, sir.
My main question is, I've got a couple. One question I have is, why do we have, I go to the Grand Junction VA. I'm a disabled veteran. I've been going for years. But why do we have such a terrible time retaining doctors at the Grand Junction VA? I've had 6 primary care change doctors in the last 5 years. And I think if some of them were very good doctors, and I would think if somebody from somewhere in the VA would go to these doctors and find out why we can't retain them, it might solve some of our problem.
Well, and I appreciate that. When we just toured the VA here a few months ago up in Grand Junction, as you probably noted, new administrator there, I think, is doing a terrific job. But we did ask about the staffing, and he noted that they weren't fully staffed. Some of it is the wages. Some of it's location. You've got some doctors that want to be able to live in a larger metropolitan area as well. But I think you do point to an issue that we do need to be seeking a solution on through the VA, and maybe looking at some incentives to be able to keep those doctors in the rural areas. But one opportunity may be some student loan repayment for people in the medical community to be able to serve there, and make sure that we're getting some of that continuity. But that's one idea that we have talked about, to be able to try and maybe make sure that we get that continuity, because as you know, you get a relationship with the doctor, and if they leave, that makes it a little more difficult for you to be able to handle.
And thank everybody for being on the line and staying with us here. We are working through a few final questions here. If you do not get the opportunity to ask your question before the end of the call, we do have a number left in the queue. Please stay on the line, and at the conclusion of the call, you will be able to leave a voicemail, which will be listened to, and we will get back to you with response to your questions. So again, please stay on the line, and we will get back to you with response to your questions. For our next question, we're going to go to Dale in Cortez.
Hi, Dale.
Good evening, Congressman. I want to thank you for your support of conservation issues in our district. It's not, just not one person's district. It's all of our district. My question is about the Good Samaritan law that I understand is working its way through Congress. There's as many as 500,000 abandoned mines in America and probably 33,000 sites in the west part of the United States that have degraded the environment. And it's against federal law for anyone to attempt to do anything. If somebody touches one of those mines, they immediately become responsible for anything that's going on there. I understand Good Samaritan law is in the works. Can you tell us what the status of that is?
You bet. This is an issue, and Dale, I appreciate you bringing this up. We've worked on this for several years now to try and be able to seek a real solution, because you identify very well the problem that we all understand, all believe needs to be rectified, and that is some of the abandoned mines and how they're impacting our rivers, impacting fish. We'd had a committee hearing today in Natural Resources that touched on this very issue. Trout Unlimited, who we've worked with in terms of crafting some of the legislation that we have worked on, noted one of the biggest challenges is the long-term liability. Trout Unlimited said they'd be happy to work on a lot of these projects to be able to help facilitate real cleanup, real results, to be able to improve the quality of our water coming out of these abandoned mines, but they can't have unlimited liability in perpetuity. And I thought there were some great ideas that we've certainly discussed and are discussing again today out of our office in terms of trying to be able to develop a pilot project to be able to show that this can work. And some of the testimony, Dale, that we received today in committee did note that we're going to have to be dealing to a degree with the Clean Water Act, because one of the problems right now is if you take on the obligation or are willing to be able to assume the full liability, you're to comply completely with the Clean Water Act. We're talking about some very polluted waters that are coming out and impacting our streams. I was pleased to be able to see in a bipartisan fashion in the committee today, people willing to be able to have some targeted moves in terms of the Clean Water Act as it comes to the respect of Good Samaritan legislation, to be able to have some incremental improvements in that water is going to be a positive thing to have happen. So I was probably a little more hopeful today that we could actually see this type of legislation move forward. The big overriding obstacle has always been that liability issue, and I think with some of the thoughts that we'd had expressed today and people trying to be solutions-oriented, I came out of that meeting a little more optimistic that we may ultimately now be able to move forward with legislation, get it on the floor and maybe through the House and possibly even the Senate to be able to address something that is of real concern, primarily really in our district, to where we have a lot of abandoned mines that are impacting our streams, impacting aquatic life in those rivers as well. This would be a good thing for us to be able to accomplish, but it is going to take some movement in terms of the liability issue, and then also having some targeted movement specifically as it pertains to Good Samaritan legislation in the Clean Water Act. So I'll be a little more optimistic after our committee hearing today that there is a potential for us to maybe to be able to move something forward. So I do appreciate your concern on this as well, Dale.
Thank you, Congressman. Remember, we all live downstream.
Yes, we do. We do. Thanks, Dale.
And thank all of you for joining us this evening. We are reaching the end of our time for this Teletown Hall meeting. If you were waiting to ask a question and did not get the opportunity, please stay on the line at the conclusion of this call, and you will be able to leave a voicemail message. Congressman Tipton will hear those messages, and we will get back to you with an answer to your questions. For those of you, last chance, who want to sign up for a periodic email update from Congressman Tipton, please press 7, and somebody will be able to collect your information on that. With that, we're going to turn it over to Congressman Tipton for some concluding remarks and wrap up the call.
Well, thank you, Josh, and I do appreciate all of you for taking time out of your evening to be able to be with us. Do appreciate the questions that you put forward. Please stay in contact. We have our offices that are in district in Grand Junction, Durango, Alamosa, and in Pueblo, as well as our Washington office. Do want to encourage you to reach out to us with your thoughts, your ideas, your concerns that you're facing. A couple of issues we did not touch on this evening during the course of the town hall, but we are continuing to work on, is in terms of addressing the threat of wildfire in our state, to have some positive moves to be able to protect our communities and our watersheds. We're working diligently also on broadband issues as we're looking at infrastructure package to be able to move forward. That superhighway in terms of the broadband internet connection is going to be critical for economic development. And when we're talking about medicine, when we're talking about commerce, and for our children to be able to learn, I think that is going to be critical and something that we're focused on. We do have a couple of bills that we're going to continue to be pushing on, the Protecting Our Water Rights Act, and pleased to be able to report that today we had 2 bills this week that we were able to pass out of the House of Representatives with broad bipartisan support. Our Taylor Act and our Bank Fairness Exam Act passed out of the House of Representatives today with great bipartisan support to be able to provide that access to capital for our families, for our small businesses. And our Mobile Act was included in the Senate bill, which will be now moving back over to the House of Representatives as well. All, again, opportunities for our families to be able to participate in economic progress and be able to improve their prospects for the future. We, again, thank you all for joining us, and we do have a new e-newsletter that we would encourage you to sign up for on our website, which is at www.tipton.house.gov. And we, again, appreciate you for taking time out. And please also check in on our Facebook page at facebook.com/Congressman Scott Tipton. Thanks again for joining us.